Dusk Falls, panic rises. Dusk settled across the Paleolithic valley like a heavy, suspicious blanket, one that might smother you in your sleep or steal your last beat. The fire crackled nervously, mammoth bones creaked and groaned in the cold like they were rethinking their life choices, and somewhere in the rear chamber of the cave, someone gasped, then immediately disguised it as a cough, followed by an exaggerated throat clear for dignity. Across the glowing embers, Grok inched closer to the fire, his fur cloak dragging behind him like a man who had seen too much and smelled even worse. Someone stepped on a beetle. Someone else accused a shadow of getting too close. A twig snapped outside the cave, and a ripple of tension shot through the group. Eyes widened, muscles tensed, and then nothing. A silent, unspoken consensus took root. No one was going to check. Mock, who had once fought a bear using only a rock and misplaced confidence, now whispered, "Probably just wind." Every head nodded, too fast, too eagerly, because in truth, Cavemen were absolutely, unapologetically terrified of the dark. Darkness was not optional. Nightfall wasn't romantic. It wasn't a gentle fade into stars and soft songs. It was a full sensory shutdown. Like someone hurled a damp mammoth hide over the sun, muttered good luck, and walked off. The world shrank instantly to the radius of a flickering campfire. Beyond that glowing boundary, danger. Real, immediate, snarl-in-the-dark kind of danger. Saber-toothed cats with unresolved anger, wolves with territorial issues, emotionally unstable owls that stared too long and blinked too little, and, worse, things so unfamiliar, so wrong-sounding in the bushes that early humans didn't even bother naming them, just that noise, followed by run. There was no science, no flashlights, just instinct. And that instinct didn't whisper, it screamed. Do not engage. Stay where it's warm. Stay where it's lit. Stay where Jeff isn't screaming. Because anyone foolish enough to stray beyond the firelight either didn't return, came back missing important body parts, or returned spiritually broken, speaking in wide-eyed riddles about the thing with too many teeth. Darkness wasn't just a backdrop to their lives. It was the apex predator. Hungry, patient, and always watching. Fires were lifelines, not decor. Fire wasn't ambiance. It wasn't cozy. It was survival. A blazing, crackling, do not eat me sign posted in the middle of a murderous wilderness. Every tribe had a fire watcher, always one. It was a sacred role, usually given to the most alert, the most paranoid, or the one who couldn't sit still without making everyone else nervous. That person didn't blink. They didn't snack. They didn't scratch. They just stared into the flames like the flames had personally offended them and now owed back rent. If the fire went out, the tribe didn't just get cold, they got extinct. Immediately. Quietly. So rituals formed. Little dances. Low chants. People whispering to the fire like it was a sentient beast that needed flattery. Some offered beet juice, others tossed in feathers or mammoth hairs or extremely specific compliments. You burned so evenly tonight, very symmetrical. The rule was universal. Keep it burning or get blamed for whatever clawed its way out of the night. Once, a fire watcher nodded off for 9 seconds. Just 9. A raccoon snake hybrid stole 3 roots and licked the soup pot. The tribe never forgot. They named a fungus after him. It was ugly, poisonous, and grew in the shape of regret. Every sound meant doom. Nighttime noise was a symphony of dread played on the world's worst instruments. The wind wasn't just wind, it whispered your name like it knew your secrets. Branches cracking didn't just snap, they tiptoed. Distant howls were either wolves, vengeful spirits, or both, coordinating a group project. And silence? Silence was the loudest threat of all. Too much quiet meant something was out there. Calculating, salivating. People would stop mid-chew and freeze like statues made of fear and questionable stew. A single cough could trigger a spear draw. If someone sneezed, at least 3 others flinched, clutched their loved ones, and readied their goodbye grunts. Whole caves sometimes voted to sleep standing. Better visibility, less lung exposure, and easier to run if the shadows got too opinionated. Every sound was prophecy. That faint rustle in the bushes could be a squirrel, could be a cave demon with hooves and boundary issues. No one checked, ever. Sleeping was a full-contact sport. Bedtime wasn't private, it was strategy. Sleeping alone meant volunteering as bait for whatever had eye shine and sharp teeth. So humans invented the cuddle pile, not for love, but logistics. Dozens of limbs tangled under mammoth hides, breathing in sync, twitching whenever someone farted, snored, or whispered something existential in their sleep. There was always one designated awake person, usually Moke, who claimed he could hear ghosts breathing, and once punched a shadow for looking smug. The concept of a good night's sleep didn't exist. What existed was survival naps with bonus neck cramps. Dreams were mostly about running, falling, or forgetting where you left your only edible root. Comfort was a myth. Loincloths weren't adjusted for luxury. They were repositioned to prevent frostbite and scandal. Pillows, knees. Blankets, other people's backs, and occasionally a disgruntled dog. Romance sometimes bloomed in the tangle. Two elbows accidentally touched. Someone shared a slightly warmer spot. But no one admitted it out loud. That would be weird. Everyone knew the rule: snuggle first, feel feelings never. Fear became mythology. Over time, night terrors turned into stories. If something screeched in the dark, it wasn't a bird. It was a sky wraith with 17 toes and a vendetta. Fear birthed folklore. Someone claimed a spirit whispered their name. They were now a prophet and got first pick of the berries. One elder said a shadow hugged him once. He became a healer and started offering advice to rocks. Cave paintings transformed. What started as deer and spears evolved into epic sagas of dark beasts, glowing eyes, disembodied growls, and shadowy realms beyond the river, where no sane mammoth dared tread. Storytelling became armor. The more absurd the tale, the more it made sense. Logic didn't survive the night shift, but imagination did. One child once drew a monster made entirely of fingernails and resentment. Everyone stared. No one questioned it. That night, the entire tribe shifted 2 feet closer to the fire and slept in a single tense cuddle lump. Fear was terrifying, but stories? Stories were how you fought back. Love lit by fear, terror turned tender. Huddled by firelight, hearts pounded, not just from fear, but from proximity and the accidental intimacy of survival. A hand would brush another while reaching for the same charred stick. A glance lingered longer than necessary across flickering shadows. Fear bonded people in ways no ceremony could. One couple courted through shared watch shifts. Nothing says romance like synchronized panic and whispering. Did you hear that? In unison. Others whispered sweet nothings like, if I don't make it, guard my favorite rock. Or, you're the least sweaty person in the cuddle pile. Babies were conceived not from passion alone, but practical desperation. If someone could keep you warm, share their beet stash, and stab a predator mid-snore without hesitation, they were basically soulmate material. Love didn't bloom in safety, it fumbled into existence between adrenaline spikes and shared cloaks. Fear didn't kill love, it stoked it. Because in the Paleolithic world, panic was a better matchmaker than poetry. And nothing said, I adore you, like not letting the wolves eat your partner first. The torch guy era. Eventually, someone snapped. One brave idiot lit a moss bundle on fire, tied it to a stick, and walked into the void like a glowing question mark. Torch guy. His name changed from tribe to tribe, Zarn, Blurt, Kevin. But every group had one. He wasn't nominated. He simply stood up one night, yelled something like, I hear destiny, and vanished into the dark with a flaming broom and too much confidence. He'd return hours later, wide-eyed and singed, muttering about the glimmering fox, or the hole that speaks in burps. Sometimes he brought back weird rocks. Once, a live badger wearing what might have been a tiny hat. No one questioned him. Torch Guy was legend, not wise, not safe, but legendary. People built songs around his adventures, mostly in the key of confusion. Children carved his likeness into sticks. Elders claimed he had the light madness, which only made him cooler. He was the first night explorer, the original flashlight, the Paleolithic embodiment of hold my fermented berries, and somehow he always made it back. Usually. smelling like smoke and chaos. Invention fueled by fear. Fear sparked creativity. Glowing bugs were captured and tied to bits of bark. They exploded, twice. Still, it was considered a promising lead. Someone else planted reflective stones along the walking paths, hoping moonlight would help, only to be chased by a confused moose who mistook them for rival eyes. Another visionary made hats with tiny fire bowls strapped to the top. They lit hair, they lit eyebrows, they lit hope. One eccentric carved dozens of wooden eyeballs and stuck them on everything. Trees, caves, goats. Because, according to him, if the darkness sees you watching, it might behave itself. Another group smeared glowing moss across their faces. It caused a rash, sure, but they looked like haunted lanterns and took great pride in it. Innovation didn't eliminate fear, it just made it louder, weirder, and significantly more flammable. The arms race between darkness and dumb ideas escalated with each passing night. Nothing worked consistently. Most attempts ended in minor injury or goat confusion, but trying felt better than hiding, and sometimes that was enough. At the very least, it gave the dark something to laugh at, too. The Festival of the Dark. One tribe decided to face the fear head-on, with a party. They called it the Festival of the Dark. No one really knew how it started, just that someone screamed, someone else cheered, and suddenly they had a tradition. It involved fire circles, bark masks, interpretive yelling, and someone aggressively playing a log like a drum while making eye contact with the void. One man, dressed as the moon, covered himself in chalk dust and promptly ran into a tree. Twice, a woman declared herself the spirit of shadows, wore 8 cloaks, and demanded snacks from everyone. She received many. She was terrifying. It was absolute chaos, but somehow it worked. Laughter replaced screaming. Children threw rocks into the dark and shouted, "Begone, night!" in voices too high-pitched to be legally binding. No spirits left, no monsters ran, but something shifted. Confidence grew. For one night, the darkness didn't vanish, but it felt smaller, less powerful, less like a god, more like a badly behaved cousin. The celebration returned yearly. It grew louder, sillier, braver, and slowly, fear became festivity. Terror became theater. The night, it still sucked, but now it had to compete with interpretive dance and a woman demanding goat jerky in the name of shadows. Shadows in our bones. Today, the lights stay on. Cities glow. Screens glow. Refrigerators glow. Even toilets glow now, for reasons science still can't justify. But the fear lingers. Quiet, subtle, and annoyingly timeless. It's in the hesitation before stepping into a dark room. It's in the urge to check behind the shower curtain, even though logic says there's nothing there. It's in the chill that skitters down your spine when silence lasts just a beat too long. Because we didn't just inherit tools, fire, and stories. We inherited the instinct to huddle, to stay close, to keep watch. To whisper in the dark and wait for dawn, like our ancestors did, with wide eyes and clenched butts. Porch Guy lives on in late-night joggers with questionable route choices. Firewatcher lives on in anxious insomniacs who hear every creak in the house and quietly prepare for battle. Cave scribes live on in bedtime storytellers whispering monsters into existence, only to defeat them with blankets and heroic teddy bears. The darkness never left. It's still out there, lurking, humming, occasionally making your hallway feel haunted for no reason. We just added LEDs and called it progress. Don't scoff at the nightlight. Don't shame the scream at a creaking door. Don't roll your eyes at someone clutching a blanket like it's a shield forged by ancient warriors. Early humans knew exactly what they feared, and more importantly, they survived because of it. The dark wasn't just a backdrop, it was a force. The monsters were sometimes real, sometimes metaphorical, and sometimes just Grog snoring too loud in the corner. But the response? Community, fire, laughter, noise, snacks, always snacks. You never face the shadows on an empty stomach. So when the lights go out and the silence gets bold, when the hallway feels longer than it should and every creak feels personal, remember this. You come from a long line of people who feared the dark and lived anyway. They sang into it, danced near it, yelled at it, just to feel something. They invented dumb hats, glowing rocks, and bedtime stories to keep the shadows at bay. Fear doesn't make you weak. It makes you aware, it makes you creative, it makes you human. So light the torch, hug a friend, grab a snack, put on your moss hat of bravery, and stare into the shadows, wide-eyed, slightly ridiculous, and ready, with a bigger story to tell.